This is a very special episode of Learn from Others. Today, we will learn how to craft the perfect elevator pitch so you can market yourself in the best way possible. Our guest today is Joy Rich. Joy is the director of the experiential learning for the Tennessee Board of Regents that oversees the 40 technical and community colleges across the state. In her role, she serves as the SkillsUSA post-secondary state director and oversees the growth and development of apprenticeships and other work-based learning opportunities for college students. Joy has over 20 years of experience in career and technical education, which includes 15 years as a high school marketing instructor. Well, Joy, thank you for sharing your expertise today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Let's kick this off by asking a really simple question. What is an elevator pitch?
So an elevator pitch is basically when someone asks you in an interview or on that 20-second elevator ride, what do you do for a living? And it is, what do you say back? And so when you're in that interview and you get asked that question, what do you do? Or why do you want this job? And you pause and you think, oh my gosh, I don't know what I do. Or when someone says, tell me about yourself, that's an even better one. And you have to sum up in 20 seconds or 30 seconds your entire life story. That is an elevator pitch. What I do, or what I try to do, is teach students, and those students can be anywhere from teenagers to 50-year-old adults, how to tell their story in 30 seconds or less. And basically what that means is summarizing those key points that matter to that particular person or that particular audience, that gets that wow factor, that gets the key pieces of information about you that sells you to them for whatever job or scholarship or internship that you're trying to seek. That is what an elevator pitch is.
Okay, and I know you've done some great curriculum that kind of helps students figure out how to craft their own elevator pitch. Mm-hmm. Could you kind of give us some pointers and kind of an overview as to how a student would approach this project?
Sure. So we actually have a conference coming up, and I'm working on, I have a session that's called Tell Your Story. And so the first piece that I begin with is talking about your first impression, which that's the wow factor. People always remember the ones who wow us from the very first word that leaves their mouth. And the people that wow us are the type that usually ask more questions than they answer. And they're the type who, upon answering the very first question, they're going to provide such an engaging answer that we'll have trouble asking anything else, because we're just wowed by what they say. We always think that when someone says, tell me about yourself, that's an easy thing to answer. And really, that's the hardest question to answer. I mean, think about the last time you were interviewed when someone said that to you. Your brain sometimes seizes up and it's like, well, I have a dog and 2 kids, but that's not really what they want to know, right? Like, they want to know about your career history. And so while technically that's not a difficult question, failing to take the time to craft your career story, that's a wasted opportunity. So even though you may have a great resume, it's critical to think about, how do you take that resume and bring that to life? And so in this day and age, a lot of times our job opportunities come through referrals. It might come through a casual conversation with someone that you really do meet in an elevator or in a lobby or at a soccer game. And a lot of times now even through social media. That is not how you traditionally would have come across an interview in the past. And so you need to be prepared on the cuff to tell your story. And so another thing is, why do interviewers ask us to tell us about ourselves? And so this is probably the most important answer that you're going to give during an interview. It's usually the first question, and people make judgments on first impressions. And some interviewers even ask this question to see how are you going to react in an unstructured or relaxed environment. So, we get prepared for what's been your most challenging experience, or give me 5 adjectives, but a lot of times we forget the most casual question, which is, tell me about yourself. The concept I tell with our students is it goes something like this. You step into an elevator with a stranger, you've been making small talk, you push the 20th floor button and they say, what do you do? You got 20 seconds to get it right. Most of us say something vague. We opt for modesty instead of telling it how it is, right? But do we realize that if we take this option, to confidently introduce ourselves, what our unique skills are, and in the space of a 30-second elevator ride, we could have scored our next job. So the concept of the elevator pitch is to briefly convey and deliver relevant information to all sorts of audiences, but its aim is to have the listener want to know more, so that when that elevator dings on the 20th floor, they come out the door with us to want to talk more. So it recognizes that you don't have time to tell everything, but it also recognizes that you want to spark interest and get some engagement with that audience member. And so it could be something that you're trying to sell an item. You're wanting to get that CEO, connected with you, exchange that business card for that follow-up meeting. Could simply be making small talk with a stranger at a party to make a good impression. But the goal is to get them interested, engaged, so that you can have further, more detailed conversation with them.
And I think part of the issue, and you mentioned it briefly, is people want to be modest. They don't want to necessarily brag about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they have to realize this is a moment to tell someone about yourself and how you can be a value and asset to their corporation. And it's not necessarily bragging. It's just basically stating the facts about your skills and experience.
Absolutely. And so when you're trying to think about how do I plan this elevator pitch in a way that I don't sound like I'm bragging, but I'm modest, but I am selling my skill set, there's actually some questions you can ask yourself to plan your story. And so I always guide students through this process. And so here are the questions. So you can ask yourself, who are you? What do you stand for? And can you clearly explain this? That's the first question. The second is, do you have any unique attributes or skill sets, and can you articulate them in a compelling manner? What value do you bring to the organization that the other candidates do not? And can you demonstrate this value through telling a brief story? So can you give an example to the audience or to the individual you're speaking to that demonstrates that value? And so those are some heavy questions. And you would think that, gosh, it would take me an hour to do that. But really it doesn't. And those are the key pieces for someone to be thinking about as they're crafting that 20 to 30 second elevator pitch.
Right. I know when I was a manager and I had an employee who wanted a promotion, and he would say, well, I'm a hard worker. I'm a hard worker. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was a hard worker, but I also knew I had 10 other hard workers. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of, well, what separates you from the crowd?
Right.
To these questions exactly. What unique attributes or skills that you have? How can you articulate them? Mm-hmm. And then even the one about demonstrating this value through telling a brief story. So you're taking part of your career history, quantifying it in a way that, hey, I overcame this obstacle to succeed this way that could be beneficial at the next level or whatever that position is.
Absolutely. And so one of those things that's really challenging is, how are you concise? Like, you don't have to tell your whole life story or even the highlights of your whole life story. It's really thinking about, 1 to 3 things that you want to emphasize about you and your ambitions. And you don't want to overwhelm your listeners. You only want to include the parts that are relevant to that specific situation. So you really need to know, what is it that you're looking to do and know who your audience is. Do a little homework if you can. Sometimes you're kind of just randomly put into a situation, but if you know who you're going to be speaking with, know who they are and know how you can craft your story to that audience. You know that there's an opening with that company. Craft your specific example of your story so that it meets strategically, what they're looking for, and give your example. I always give this example, like if you really want to be a web designer, you should emphasize the web design work that you already do rather than talking about a dead-end job that you want to get rid of. Like, don't waste your time talking about negative things in your life. Like, focus in on the work that you're doing that you want to be getting into doing, kind of thing.
Right, and I think that is a big part of it, because sometimes you want out of a job.
Yeah.
You can't communicate that during an interview because they want to know that you're positive, you want to grow, you want to be an asset to them. They don't want to be an escape plan,
Yes.
for another job that you don't like.
Yes, and a lot of people kind of get on that negative bandwagon, and no one wants to listen to negativity. And sometimes it's hard to get out of that mindset, and that's just a piece that a lot of people have to think about is, I need to be positive, I need to be thinking about where I want to go, and I need to communicate my ambitions of my desire of where I want to go. And sometimes that's challenging, specifically if you are in between jobs and you're worried about getting a job. You have to literally pump yourself up and get into that mindset of, this is where I want to go, and this is my mindset of what I want to achieve. And, a lot of people kind of suffer some depression-type pieces, especially if they've been let go of a job. And it's a mental, you got to do a mental pep rally pretty much to get yourself jazzed back up when you go into those interviews. And sometimes you struggle with the self-worth piece. So sometimes you have to have a mental pep rally to get yourself ready when you go into that interview. And that's a piece of it. And so just knowing that you need to focus in that 30-second pitch on, this is what my ambitions are, and this is what I want to do, and not focus on where you just come from. That's a huge piece, because if you communicate your excitement and communicate your ambition and communicate your skill set, that will transverse into what you're communicating to that employer, and it will shine through. And if you're dwelling on the past and the negative pieces of your past, that's going to shine through as well, and that's not what you want to communicate.
What type of tools or resources or access points would you recommend?
Right. So one of the things that we do is I actually give students examples, like real-world examples of different people's stories. We actually have these for them, and it's actually something I probably put on our website of like real people's stories. Like if you've had a break in your career, you're a stay-at-home parent, like, I give them an example of a story, of Heather's story. If you're making a career change, or if you've never had a career level job, of what that person's story looks like when they first wrote it, and then what it looks like when they rewrite it. Another piece that we use, you mentioned that I'm the SkillsUSA State Director. In SkillsUSA, we have a framework, and it's based on personal skills, workplace skills, and technical skills. And what that means is it's grounded on personal skills, integrity, work ethic, professionalism, responsibility, communication, decision-making, and so forth. And so what I actually have them do is look at that framework, which I'm happy to share with you this entire presentation, which you can share with the audience. And so I actually have them go through the framework and craft their story utilizing verbiage from this framework. So, for example, meet Sean, it says, I'm a welder who prides myself on my work ethic and self-motivation. I excel in my ability to communicate, problem solve, and lead others. I'm AWS certified, and I'm looking to connect with a team that values my skill set and supports continued professional development. That would be an example of an adult student who has reconnected. He's going back to college to be a welder, and that would be a good, general, quick elevator pitch that he could communicate to anyone if they said, tell me about yourself, or why do you want this job, or what are you doing? And that's something easily that we do with students. And so I'm happy to send this to you, even with the examples and everything that we work with students. Have another one about someone who might be going back to be a business professional. And that's really what you need. I have a planning guide in here, and it's who are you? What adjectives describe you? What are your specific skills? What unique value do you have that others may not? What is your goal and purpose, or what opportunity are you seeking? And that's really where you have to start. And sometimes it's like a little moment of self-reflection, like, who are you? And for some people, that's kind of a hard question to answer. Like, who am I? It's very simple, but for some people, that's a little moment of self-reflection on that. But that's where we make them start. Where are you wanting to go, and what adjectives describe you? And sometimes even on the adjectives, I have people ask their friends and family, what are 5 adjectives that you would use to describe me? Because sometimes people see themselves differently than others see them. And sometimes that's harsh to ask other people to give those adjectives, and sometimes we need that self-reflection.
Yeah, that could be a rude wake-up call.
Sometimes, yes, we need to go through that process. But I'm happy to share this with you, and you feel free to post that for your listeners to look at. But that's the process that we walk everyone through, and then pretty much you just put it all together, and then you just need to practice it. I mean, literally, practice makes perfect. You need to share your story with your friends, with your family, with your mirror. Watch yourself. Say it back and forth to yourself, because as you continually refine that process, you're only going to get more comfortable. So then when you do sit in an interview, they say, tell me about yourself, you're ready. You don't have that hesitation. Your face won't turn red. You won't break out in a sweat. And you're ready. And then you won't miss those opportunities when you're standing in an elevator. You won't miss those opportunities when you're at a After 5 event, and that will help you to land the job that you want, or to get to the next level that you're wanting to get at, whereas currently you're too nervous, or you wouldn't know what to say if the opportunity presented itself.
Now, my assumption would be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the percentage of students that actually create an elevator pitch and use it is probably on the lower side. I don't know the percentages, but anyone who does this, even if it's not the perfect elevator pitch, I would assume would put them heads and tails above the competition immediately.
Absolutely. So this role that I'm in is a newly created role. And so this is something that as I'm in this role, every single student in Tennessee will be doing this. As time goes on, all the graduates in Tennessee colleges will have this pitch. You want to get into the market of doing this now before all of our graduates start doing this. But across the country, I would say that, this is a newer thing to start doing, but it's something that needs to be done, because those who have a prepared answer are going to be the ones who rise to the top. Those who look at someone blank-faced or red-faced are going to be the ones who do not get the job. Anything you can do to be prepared for a scholarship interview, for a job interview, internship, I mean, even when you're meeting with that girl's daddy for the first time, when you know how to answer that question confidently, it's going to put you ahead of the game.
Right. Right. Well, we will have all these posted on learnfromothers.org, including any relevant links and the worksheet. So I really appreciate that. I know you mentioned Skills USA and your role briefly with Skills USA. Could you tell us a little bit about Skills as an organization and how our listeners can learn more to possibly get involved?
Absolutely. So Skills USA is a national career and technical student organization. It's in all 50 states and several other countries across the world. It is actually all the way down into middle schools and high schools and in post-secondary institutions. And it is connected to all 16 career clusters. So students learn leadership skills, and then they actually have the opportunity to compete in technical competitions. So everything from welding to cosmetology, marketing, business, health science, they compete against one another in technical skills demonstrations. We have industries that support these competitions as judges. They also have the opportunity to serve as vendors and recruit our top students. So specifically here in Tennessee, we actually have a leadership training institute coming up in a few weeks, and we have industry who are coming in to help teach our students. We have a session on interviewing like a star, and we have a national healthcare company coming in. Their HR department will be helping to teach students how to prepare for interviews, and those same companies will also be working with students and have the opportunity to recruit our top college students, which is fantastic. It helps to fill that employment skills gap that we're experiencing across the country. We have a lot of advanced manufacturing companies who participate both in training our students in the classroom, and they attend these conferences. It's a great way to teach students those soft skills that a lot of companies say students are missing. And I always refer to it as kind of a three-legged stool. So students get the classroom instruction from the textbook. They get work-based learning experiences through apprenticeships with our industry. And then the Skills USA is that third leg that gives the soft skills, the employability skills, kind of fills in those gaps so that our students are job ready day one when they graduate. And it's a fantastic partnership between industry and education that just gets our students completely ready. So if you are a business owner, an industry leader that is looking for an opportunity to connect to schools directly and to influence what is happening with the training of students, then you need to get connected with Skills USA. How do you do that? If you go to skillsusa.org, click on the industry tab, that will get you connected to the Skills USA national headquarters, which they have individuals there that will connect industry partners. If you want to connect to Tennessee Skills USA, connect with me. Our website is tnpsskillsusa.org, and the PS stands for post-secondary. And feel free to post our information as well, because we are constantly looking to connect our industry professionals with our colleges here in Tennessee, because I firmly believe that connecting industry and education is the only way to strengthen our programs and to get our students ready to enter their career successfully.
It sounds like an amazing program, amazing organization that really, like you said, completes the stool, the third leg.
It does.
So it's totally all-encompassing. That's awesome. Well, I have to ask,
Yeah.
The welding competition. I'm trying to quantify this because I think it's super cool. I weld for fun. I've never been in a welding competition. So picturing 3 or 4 or 10 welders, students, and they're given a task, and maybe a type of weld or 2 pieces of metal, whatever. They have a time limit, maybe, and then at the end of that time limit, you have the judges that checks the beading, the spacing. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. They have MIG welding, TIG welding.
Awesome.
Yeah, they have a project to complete, and they have materials, and they are assessed on their quality and how they go about performing it. We have construction, the same thing. They have something specific that they have to build, and they are measured on the technicality of how precise and specific they do it within a specified time limit.
For the record, I would lose that competition.
Well, you are welcome. I invite you to come to the competition. You need to see it firsthand. We have our state conference in the end of March in Chattanooga, and it is something that I welcome anyone. Anyone can come see it. We have observers. The public can come see it, and that's something that I invite you to come see, because once you see it, you'll want to come be part of it every single year.
What's the conference you have coming up in a few weeks at the end of November?
Yeah, Tennessee Leadership Training Institute, Cool Springs Marriott. It's November 19th through the 20th. And if anyone is an industry individual who wants to play a role in that, contact me. You put my contact information on there. We are still open for industry individuals who are looking to partner with us if they want to come and recruit our top-notch students. Our state officer candidates will be there, our chapter leaders will be there, and it's students from all across Tennessee from all 40 of our Tennessee technical colleges and community colleges, as well as their instructors will be at this conference. And this session that I just talked about, we're teaching how to interview like a star and how to tell your story will happen at this conference.
Okay, that's great. I will post all this information so folks will have access to it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Joy.
Well, thank you so much for yours as well.
Thank you for listening to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. Where will our next adventure take us? Subscribe to find out. If you know of someone who has a cool career story or occupation, contact Greg through Instagram at Greg Stanley LFO. That's GregStanley LFO. And we will see you soon as we learn from others together.